All right. Welcome back to the Pit Press podcast. Another very special episode today. And I'm excited to have this guy on. But before we get going, I want to introduce, as I always say, I'm 1/3 of the Pit Press. I want to introduce my other two co-hosts in this endeavor and business partners. I'll start with Eric Malton. He's able to join us today. And I don't know if he can say hi, but Eric, how are you today? I guess not. Total silence. We're good there. All right. To at least the more important, the second most important man in this podcast, my co-host and I guess question asker guy. I don't know what you want to call him. That's terrible for somebody in print journalism. He is the voice of Western New Mexico, and he has been a Lobo fan since 1970. Mr. Ed Nunez.
Ryan, good to be here again, and got another great guest. So looking forward to it.
I'm really excited here. But before I move on, I don't know how you are all surviving because I have a swamp cooler, and in the words of Rob Thomas from the Santana collaboration, Smooth. And to do this interview, I had to turn everything off. All right. That's the joke I was telling you about, Ro. Anyway,
no, it's the same here. I'm sweating too. I'm melting over here. It is so hot in Albuquerque.
Oh man, and there's a little bit of humidity. Let me give you a proper introduction besides that crappy Rob Thomas and Santana one. Our next guest is a former UNM men's basketball player who was a forward under head coach Steve Alford from 2006 to 2010. He averaged just about 9 points, 5 rebounds, and an assist per game during his Lobo tenure. But in 2009 and 2010, that season, he averaged 14 points per game, 6 assists, and he started all 35 games. That season, he helped the Lobos go to 30-5 overall, 14-2 in the Mountain West Conference, which ended up being an outright Mountain West regular season championship. I'll have a question for you about that. And a berth in the second round of the NCAA tournament that year. Damn you, Isaiah Thomas. He is playing for the basketball tournament, or the TBT's the Enchantment, for the second year in a row. And this might be subjective. Many UNM alumni and fans consider him a UNM men's basketball legend, and I would say he is. His name is Roman Martinez. Ro, how are you? And thank you for joining the show.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm excited to be here. Excited to be back in Albuquerque. And yeah, thanks again.
That kind of segues into my next question. Perfect. You are back in Albuquerque. Do you ever get nostalgic when you come back to Albuquerque, see a UNM, and you're in the pit and you're walking up and down the ramp?
Yes, I do. Mostly just a lot of pain, right? So we used to run up the stairs. They used to say, "Go run," So a lot of pain, a lot of great memories. And every time I go there, I take a walk around to kind of look at, different eras and different legends. But definitely. Did I lose you guys?
Ryan, you there?
I might have lost Ryan. No, so yeah, I've been going back to the pit regularly.
Wait, hold on, Rob.
Oh,
He's right
hold
there.
on.
2, 1. Oh, you got to love technology. All right. What is it like getting all of these mostly UNM alumni to play on the Enchantment in the TBT?
I love it. So most of the guys on this team now I have experience with. So, Anthony Mathis, Scotty Bamford. So it's my third year. Scotty Bamford was great. Darrington Hobson, Jamal Fenton, BJ West. I played against. I have experience playing with him a little bit in Mexicali. I played in Mexico. The guys I haven't really played with too much is Vance Jackson, Christian Cunningham, Troy Simmons, Johnny McCants. But I'm excited to get on the floor with them and battle with them. That's a great foursome there, and hopefully we can do some damage. We're coming out here to win, and we come out a little early to train together, so we take this very seriously.
Does all here's a loaded question. I'll ask these two right away. Number one, does all the credit go to Brandon Mason for putting this thing together? And number two, former NMSU big Johnny McCants is on this Enchantment team. You mentioned that. Does that matter to you that he's on this team now, or is it just a collective of guys who have played basketball in New Mexico?
We're playing for the state of New Mexico. Obviously, we have guys from different teams, but for the most part, the whole TBT is like that. Even though mainly it could be one university with the focus, right? But I remember Big Jeff I played with in Mexicali. His team won it 4 times, and they were just all-star overseas team. So it's really just a collective group. But we really wanted to represent New Mexico, and that's why I'm here. It's another chance for me to play for my family, play for basically the state that made us fall in love with basketball again, right? But to answer your first question, Brandon Mason, yes, him and Ryan Berryman have done so much for us, and they allowed me, 35 to come back and play the game I love with very very high talented players.
Already mentioned NMSU. You guys beat the NMSU alumni team last year, the Panamaniacs, in the first round in the pit last year. Speaking of hot, if you were there, how much did that win mean to the UNM basketball alumni on the Enchantment, though?
Oh, great! It meant a lot, and it was a very competitive game. They actually had a guy go down, or 2 guys go down with hamstring injuries. Um, so they had a really solid team too, and it was just great for us to get a win at the pit, just to be in the pit again and be able to play in front of Lobo fans was incredible. For all of us, we were, Scotty, who never played with the Lobos, was throwing up the wolf in the pit. It was just an incredible experience for all of us, right? Another chance to be in front of those fans.
What was going through your mind when Joe Furstinger hit that walk-off bucket?
I was going, please let's just score. Please, let's score and just walk up the ramp. Let's try to figure out a way to get a basket. Year before we had a big letdown in the second half. We were up 21 at half, and we lost late. So diff, Elam endings very difficult or different, especially for me. When you're kind of for me, just basically the clock. You're playing against time now. It's a little different. You're playing a score, but it does add an extra incentive to make a basket then.
Before I ask my question, what do you want to make a comment about Brandon Mason, who played in New Mexico State, coached in New Mexico State, and coached at the University of New Mexico? I always tease Mace about that. Mace straddling the line. I'll say, Mace, who you got, Panamaniacs, or back when there's a Panamaniacs or Team Enchantment? And Mace, always politically correct, would say both. But I had to say that about Mace because he's the only guy that I know besides Jimmy Taylor, a guard back in New Mexico State that transferred to New Mexico, that has done that. Ro, the Enchantment has a distinct advantage playing. They did playing at the TB at the pit. You mentioned Scotty Bamforth with the Wolf side. Everyone's a Lobo. How might not playing at the pit affect the team in the Lubbock region?
I don't know. That's tough. I don't feel like it'll affect us at all. I feel like we're playing for a state. Me and Brandon do the same thing when we talk to each other. He's a big NMSU guy, but he also has ties to Mexico. He coached here a while, and we just playing for the state, and we want to make New Mexico proud, and we want to go out and win this thing. And I think we got the players and the team to do that this year.
Do you know anything about your first round opponents, TBT in Austin? Do you know anything about them at all?
I looked through their roster, and they're big. They got big power forwards. They got good big men. They got ex guards who are really talented and athletic. I'm sure we'll do more, maybe scout coming into it, or maybe look at a little bit of scouting report each player. However, we want to go out and play basically New Mexico basketball. We want to go put on a show, get up and down, play together, right? Play as a team, and no matter who we play against.
Yes, no doubt about that. It's got to be exciting. What did it mean for you to play on the Mexican national team as your grandfather, Francisco, did? He won a bronze medal in the 1936 Olympic Games in Berlin, Germany. What did that mean to you? That's a huge thing. What did it mean?
Yeah, it meant everything to me. to play with the national team, to continue my grandpa's legacy. My family's huge basketball fans, and they always rooted for me to do well. But getting to a point where I got to play a chance, or got a chance to play professionally in Spain and then in Mexico. I had the opportunity to play, try out for the team. I did well, and for me, it's grateful to play with such a great group of guys. Like I learned so much from that team and leadership of Gustavo Ayon, who played in the NBA with the Hornets and overseas with Madrid for a while, and Orlando. Um, Jorge Gutierrez, who still plays in Mexico. He played with Brooklyn a little bit. Paco Cruz. The list goes on and on. I mean, that team was incredible. So I won 2 gold medals with them. We went to the World Cup. I got a chance to play against Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Team USA. So it was just a surreal experience. And for me, I've just learned so much from not only from the game of basketball, but about myself.
Oh, there's a lot of great players you played with. You're an El Paso native, and your grandfather did play for New Mexico State when they were at New Mexico A&M University. And that's a long time ago. But what made you choose UNM? If I remember, there's a little bit of the miners were a little upset you didn't choose to play at UTEP. What made you choose UNM?
So that's a good question. My AU team, the New Mexico Force, I played with here in Albuquerque. I tell the story all the time. I used to travel 4 hours to go to practice, right, and get a chance to play at the AAU level when there was a couple big tournaments around. And yeah, that's what my love grew for Albuquerque. I used to come here for tournaments and play all the time. It's so close to El Paso. Um, but overall, yeah, I lost my train of thought. What was the question again, Ed?
What made you choose UNM over over Tech or New Mexico
Oh yeah.
State? Yeah, you chose UNM
So
over New Mexico State or even UTEP.
yeah, so UTEP, that's a funny story. So Doc Sadler was the coach at UTEP at the time, and when I was going to tournaments, I actually sat in a seat next to him on the plane, and he had no idea who I was, and was not in any of his. My dad was asking questions, trying to figure out like, well, I'm from El Paso, so we know about him and UTEP, and yeah, he didn't know anything about me or anything about our team, or he had a couple names on his list. I mean, Casey Cunningham was on his list, big New Mexico guy who was a great teammate of mine. But other than that, kind of just no interest at all. So when I did have a couple good tournaments, especially in the big time, I did take a unofficial visit there, and they gave me 2 weeks. They told me you had 2 weeks to make a decision because we have other guys who we want to recruit. So for me, that was a little disrespectful, and that's why I didn't pick UTEP because originally I always wanted to go to UTEP. I wanted to go close to home, but that kind of lit a fire in me and wanted me to go out and make another town proud.
I think Eric Moulton had a question.
Yeah, I did. And it was just kind of in regards to you being playing for the New Mexico Force, you being an El Paso kid and having to travel 4 hours to play. Like, I know how that was. I played AAU growing up. Now with like what Brandon Mason has set up with the ABC program, like what kind of opportunity do you think that kind of offers? Well, kids from El Paso, but especially kids from like New Mexico. A lot of kids are coming in from kind of all over the place now.
A huge opportunity, especially now, right, where transfers rule, right? So these kids, the percentage of play Division I basketball coming out of high school is very competitive now, right? Um, so I feel like you have to get that edge in any way possible. And Brandon Mason, I'm at the gym all the time trying to teach or help out as much as possible. And what he's doing is he's doing great things for New Mexico basketball for sure. He's giving kids a chance out here to prove themselves, right? The ones who really otherwise wouldn't be recognized, right? Or have to travel somewhere or take the longer path. So obviously, his team works hard, and it's not easy to be a part of this organization because they want kids who are hungry and who want to put the time and work in. But yeah, he's definitely next level when it comes to what he's doing for New Mexico and Albuquerque.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. And he's kind of putting his boys on the map because I know they're starting to rank him as young as like seventh and eighth grade. So yeah, it's good he's
Yes,
providing the opportunities.
And
Um,
he's providing opportunities as coaches too, right? So Doris Gary, he's going to be working there at ABC. Chris Perez just started working there, an ex walk on from New Mexico. So what he does is he wants us to impact the city and the kids out here, and I just love it.
yeah.
I love
Then
what he's doing.
I got one more question for you before I hand it back over to Ed. But now with how like college basketball and even just college sports in general has changed a lot since you played with NIL and whatnot. Like what's your opinion on that now? And do you think you, like Roman Martinez in the city of Albuquerque, would have been able to benefit from something like that?
I think that's a great question. And man, to be honest, I'm a little resentful at times because these kids are making a little money. However, I do feel I, I'm real excited these kids get to make some money while they're in college because when I was playing, it was two jobs, right, and full-time jobs, and you were expected to perform, right. So I'm glad these kids get a chance to make some good money. And when it comes to coaches, I felt like they were making a lot of the money and they had a lot of power. So I now this balances it out. But however, it does make things more difficult for coaches now. So I think adjustments have to be made, like coaching style, how you approach your system, and yeah, it's just such a huge change. I mean, 20 grand a year would have been everything to me and my family, right? So what these kids are making now is just incredible.
Yeah.
It's quite a change from when you played. Roman, no doubt about it. Roman, you played for 1 year under Richie McKay, and I can only imagine the answer to this because J.R. Giddings has alluded to this. How did things change when Steve Alford took over?
Oh man, things changed a lot. But Rich McKay has done really well over there in Liberty, and he's run a great program. So I'm glad he's built up that program over there. But it was night and day. When Steve came in, he he changed the program and got the guys in that he wanted to play, and um, uh, basically just beat us up during that summer. That's basically happened. I know Jr. alluded to it, but he did a good job of disciplining us and making sure we were in shape, and we were in the gym, right? So he set down discipline rules where we had to live on campus. We we stayed both summers, right? So there wasn't really an option, and guys had specific situations. He let specific guys go home, but for the most part, it was mandatory to be there, and I think that worked for us.
I think just let me say one more thing before I hand it over to Ryan. It's a different culture when Mr. Indiana basketball played for his dad, played for Bob Knight, U.S. Olympic gold medal winner. The swag comes in again. You're right. Coach McKay has done a great job. But when a guy like Steve Alford comes in, the room pays attention. And J.R. Giddings did allude to that. One time he said during one huddle, Coach Alford made him the scapegoat during the entire huddle. But I thought it made him a better player, and as you mentioned, made everybody a better player that season. I'll hand it back over to Ryan now.
I will say one thing, and row this. I told this to Dontrell Moore. This is no offense to you or to Dontrell Moore or you and them guys that we have on. I think I enjoy talking to you. I think like Ferris might be the best because I had him on my radio show and he was like, man, he would always say about how Alfred ripped his ass. He would always allude to that, and he was very candid. So that always cracks me up. That's more of a comment. Because I like all, especially with my connection with Mike Mottes, and I know I bring that up. And my new thing is to say, hey, when I covered the team, because I see all these journalists on Twitter, I'm like, you're so full of yourself, and then I say, I'm like, well, then I must be full of myself. Anyway, with it just made me think of that. But keeping in regards to Coach Alford, are you shocked at all that he has turned around Nevada from when Eric Musselman left to Arkansas? Are you shocked that Nevada was in the tournament last year?
Was I shocked? No, I was not shocked. Steve does a good job of getting the guys, getting his team to play well, play hard, play his type of basketball, right? That he grew up playing. And yeah, they just kind of reload each year, whether it's the big men that they had last year or the shooter they got from Oregon. They find guys to trust in their program, and So no, I'm not surprised at all. But it was a shock how they slipped in the band, right? It was a shock to everyone. Um, but no, and and they beat us at the buzzer here that year at the pit, and I saw that game or that buzzer beater, which was a tough one to take.
You don't have it on camera, but I don't have it on camera. You can't see it, but the Rutgers flag in the background. My parents grew up outside that town. Obviously, I'm a UNM alumni because you and I had like one or two classes together. But yes, I truly thought that Rutgers, you go in and beat the number one team. I thought they were better than Nevada, and they should have been in the play-in round. Anyway, enough of my.
So you had Nevada out. You had Nevada out.
I would have loved. I mean, I would have loved to have seen Rutgers win because it was another team. You know, I have like 5 teams because I'm a degenerate gambler on college basketball. It's UNM, Rutgers. I love Hawaii because they're on at like midnight Mountain Standard Time, and I can bet on them. And then I really enjoyed Utah Valley. We had Mark Madsen on this podcast before the NIT game, so I like the smaller conferences, so there were a select few, but I wanted to see. It would have been, and I think even at one point Lenardi had Rutgers against UNM in like a 7-10 matchup, like in January, and I've been like, I would have been there, and I would have been getting crap from all the family and friends back in Central New Jersey.
It was definitely a tough end. It was definitely a tough end. It was definitely a shock, but personally, I was pumped. I messaged Steve after. I know a lot of New Mexico people aren't big fans of Steve anymore, but I was super excited to hear that he got in or that they leaped in at the end. There was definitely other deserving teams, man. There was a long list of teams that could have done well, right? But that's what kind of makes the tournament fun.
Well, you know, I'm gonna jump the gun on this question since we brought up the teams. If you're watching college basketball, and if you watch the tournament this last year with all the smaller schools, and not saying that, I think Brian Dutcher and I know Richard Pitino says it like we're not a mid-major, but if you paid attention to the tournament and you saw Creighton and San Diego State and FAU, is that something for you to have gone to a school like UNM and played there? Was, even though all these years later, was that something cool to see?
Cool to see what? I'm sorry.
Cool to, like the smaller schools in San Diego State get to the championship game. Was that cool to see?
Oh, so cool to see. Oh, so great. I mean, it's so good to see, you know, the little teams do well for me, especially San Diego State. What a run they had. I mean, they've always been pretty good in the Mountain West, and we've always kind of been chasing them for a while or the past decade or so. So it was good to see someone represent the Mountain West and really take it to the next level, right? Because Final Four and championship games a lot different from Sweet 16.
I think you were gone. I was my final year at the Daily Lobo, but this is a side note. I'm being very specific with my choice words here. Was the best team I've seen pound for pound in person was that 2010-2011 San Diego State team with Kawhi Leonard, Malcolm Thomas, DJ Gay. Like, they were
so good.
It was a different force, man. It was unreal in person. That's the best. Maybe TCU in the same year, but that basketball team, man, I'm so sorry. I'm going off on a tangent. Again, it's good talking to you. But is there anything specific you've taken away from playing under Alfred that you'll never forget? His coaching, something he said that you've used maybe playing professionally or just in life?
So like a lot of coaches in my life, and my dad also, Steve made me a better player, and he helped me become a better person, right? And that's two things that you can take with you the rest of your life. And one up, he really challenges you. He really, really challenged me, right? And I challenged myself already, but this is a guy who's done it, right? He's won the gold medals. He's won the national championship, right? And he's not afraid to get in you if he doesn't feel like you're doing the right thing. So it was always a sense for me. It was a sense where I had to go on the next level to make sure that, you know, he didn't get on me or you know, I made him proud, right? It was hard too because he expected a lot, and he would get on guys. Like, he would get in Daniel's ass, you know, he would get in JR's ass. He wasn't afraid to get on people, but overall, I feel like he pushed me every day, right? Like most of the coaches. I also had a great coach in Tony Harper in high school, who you know, I near triple doubles, and he used to get on me for defensive, you know, kind of performances, or hey, you missed this easy one, or you know, what are you doing out of class? So I've been fortunate in my life to have my dad and then, really good coaches who have challenged me and who've taught me to kind of be a gym rat.
One of the things you mentioned about Coach Alford, Roman, is that the Lobo fans may not be big fans, some of them, but I got to say this. I think it was the way it ended. Probably, he went to UCLA. Who could blame him? He said that. Who could say no to UCLA? He had just signed an extension, and I think a lot of people are so upset about that. Later, but if you look back on the history of Lobo basketball, Bob King, the architect, and then Steve Alford's got to be right after that. 30-5 seasons don't grow on trees. I don't know when the last time we won 30 games was. So I think some of those feelings go away when you look back. Collective look. There's times I thought he wasn't a community guy. I never thought he was. But some of the things you just said, he made you a better guy and a better player. That's important to me. What was it like being a member of Steve Alford's coaching staff at Nevada?
That was a great experience for me. I learned so much about myself and about the game. I was in the war rooms a lot of almost every day. The summers I was head graduate assistant, so I was able to do my passion, which was with training, personal development, um, uh, and yeah, basically living in the gym during the summer, and then traveling during the year with the team, and being able to learn from Steve and Noodles and that staff, and um, just how organized they are, how much pride they take in practice. I think that's what I took from them the most was, and I love practice, but it took it to the next level because they were like little high school kids up there drawing up the practice plan and what they wanted to do and how they would really wanted to attack that day, right? And I just thought it was so insightful, so I ate it up that whole year.
I'm sure you learned so much because Coach Alford and Coach Neal together, I thought were dynamite. One's got the board in the huddle, and Coach Alford trusted Coach Neal to draw some of those defenses. They had trust with each other. I always thought that. Roman, the Lobos had some good success last year. Coach Patino has said this is one of the best recruiting classes in Lobo history, and as a Lobo fan since 1970, that's like wow. I'm not like okay. That puts expectations, and you know how Lobo fans are around here. What do you think of the current Lobo program? How closely do you follow them?
So the past couple years, I've been following them more. I went to the alumni game this past year, and I think they got a good program, and I think they had a heck of a year last year. I think late in the year they had some letdown games, but the Mountain West overall was tough. Uh, I mean, it was very competitive. Boise State was tough. Nevada played well. I mean, but New Mexico was up there. I feel like to get over the edge, I think a few more players are needed. And I think they're going to have a good year this upcoming year. I don't know too much about the new transfers, but um, I do know they have a good core, right? And I do know that those two guards are probably the best in the nation.
You kind of hinted at it earlier with the losses to Nevada and last second. And then I was pretty vocal about that. They blew a 5-point lead. It's like, don't blow a 5-point lead. They blew it in Reno. But did it kind of make you cringe that UNM lost both of those games in Nevada in a heartbreaking fashion? Maybe putting yourself in Lobo fan shoes because of the Alford connection, and you were like, damn.
Well, man, I don't. Steve has an incredible record at the pit, even with Nevada. I don't think since he's been in Nevada, I don't think he's lost
He's
at the
2-0.
pit. But that being said, it was tough, man. I don't take wins and losses so crazy anymore, right? I know it's important for the tournament, and these fans expect to win every night, but they're competing, and that's what I like about these guys is they're really proving themselves. And if you're gonna lose at the buzzer like to San Diego State, that was tough. And that guy hit the same shot in the Final Four, right? Or I mean, different area, but same kind of clutch shot where he knew he was going to shoot the shot. That doesn't happen too often at the pit. I haven't seen that. Well, that's never happened in my career. We lost at the buzzer. Um, so it, so it was kind of devastating to see the players and the fans all get down. But I just love the battle to the end, right? Because I'm a big House fan, and the way he defends, it matters. It really matters. Like the back line makes everyone else look better. So he made a play at the end of I think the Mata game. It was San Diego State made a play, made a nice little layup, and they just took it down and scored. So I just respect the competitive drive that these guys have.
You know what, Ro, we talked about some of the history. You mentioned that you walk around the pit and see the legends. Harge, Mel Daniels, Michael Cooper, Luke Longley, Greg Brown. There's been Kenny Thomas, Danny Granger. There's been some great players in New Mexico history. What did it mean for you to become only the third Lobo in UNM history to reach 1,000 points, 500 rebounds, and make 205 3-point shots?
Oh man, I was extremely grateful, right? Because most players don't get the opportunity. It's timing, it's coaches, choosing you or liking you. There's a lot of factors that go into having a good basketball career. So I was very fortunate for Steve stepping in, for the teammates I had like Reese Gary, Jamal Fenton, Darrington Hobson, Daniel Ferris, guys who we challenged and battled every day, right? I was a big practice guy, and everyone who talks about me knows that I was kind of crazy at practice. I love practice, right? So if you went out the night before or if you looked tired, I was going right at you, 100%, right? So there was no hold back. There was no hold bar when it came to practice. But I felt like the games were easy, and the games got easier as I got older and stronger. And I made sure, and Steve also did the same with me. Was I made practice hard, so everything else was a bonus, and and the ball went in. I had very fortunate that I shot at a high clip my last couple of years, and just was able to stay healthy. I think that's a huge part of it.
Your senior year, the 2009-2010 team, 30-5. You came up short in the second round against Washington in the NCAA tournament. 30 wins is still a great accomplishment. Ed always says that they don't grow on trees. Money doesn't grow on trees. But what do you remember most about that season?
So Darrington said it before, and it took me a while to really gain the confidence to say this also, but we're probably best team in Lobo history. I don't see anyone who could really beat us. Um, Kenny Thomas, Luke Longley had a good team. There's a couple other good squads. Drew Gordon's year, Alex Kirk years out there were a tough team, but I don't know. We just had we had a fight in us that year. It was pretty special that 2010 year. But yeah, Isaiah Thomas, one of the Holiday brothers, started off on me. They just up tempo basketball. They kind of ran us down in the tournament.
I wasn't trying to make that Washington loss like a moot point or pound it home, but
they got on us that year.
Oh, it was very funny because you guys were on this tear. I think you had like lost one game, and it was like the Oral Roberts, I think, that year. And then you went on this stretch, and then I would always go back east for the holidays and see family and see a couple of friends of mine that I grew up with here. And I remember most of that year, I was like, I went away and somebody else was at the paper covering it. And I came back and I was like, you guys were 0-2 in conference. And I was like, what the hell's going on here? Cause I was all on board the train as supposed to be an objective reporter. I was like, man, these guys are good. And I think there's some truth to that. And it's what I love to hear about from Darrington, saying you guys are the best team in Lobo history. He came in as a transfer that year, and he basically just not only lit, the pit on fire, the Mountain West Conference on fire. He was Mountain West Conference Player of the Year. I mean, he made a statement nationally in the college basketball world. What can you talk about him coming in and adding to that team?
Oh man, so I get to play again with him with Enchantment, which is incredible. But yeah, he added so much. I mean, he was like our Jokic, right? He brought up the ball. He was able to pass. He was able to rebound. It was incredible. Like I would go for rebounds. He would grab rebounds from me. This guy has the length. He has the IQ. It's the length and the IQ that really separates him, and his competitive drive, right? Because he's the type of guy who made me better, right? And the reason why, and this matters when it comes to on court basketball, right? Because chemistry does matter. He used to force me to shoot the ball, right? This is why I did so well my senior year, right? I shot almost 50% the first 10 games or whatever. I was just shooting lights out. 42% that whole year, right? He told me if I didn't shoot the ball, right, he'd start cursing me out. Right? He'd start cursing me out and he'd tell me, shoot. So I don't care if you're open or not, shoot the ball. Just shoot it. I'm going to find you. And he told me that so much that I started to believe that every shot was going in, right? That's confidence is hard to do for teammates, right? He did that, and Darius Gary also did that with me. But us three guys and everyone else on that team really stuck together and trusted that Darrington was going to make plays. Darrington was going to bring up the ball. He was going to guard the best players, right? He was going to block shots. So it really, like for me, I was a role guy and a shooter, stretch four, right? We played small ball that year, which is really interesting. No one really talks about that, but we were first one of the older teams to really buy into the small ball system, and we really dominated with that system. But Darrington, lean back to him, he made that year special for us.
Before I head into our final question, I got another one about your teammate and you played with him quite a bit, was Darius Gary. He wasn't like the most flashy player, but he was tough and he got the job done. At least that's how I felt. What kind of, I know you mentioned Darrington was kind of like Jokic, but what kind of floor general was Darius? Because I think he was a lot of key to that success that year.
Yeah, so Darius Gary, Brunson, right? Was it New York Art?
You're talking to a Knicks fan, Jalen Brunson.
Jalen Brunson, right? So if you watch him play, Darius Gary was the same exact player, but meaner, right? He was mean, and he would get in foul trouble because he'd try to run you over. That being said, Darius won us late games. We would force him to get the ball to shoot free throws. He would handle the ball under pressure. No one could really steal the ball from him. Him, like Darrington, could guard 1 through 5. I mean, Darius Gary's 5'10". You can put this on video. Darius Gary's 6'1". He's tiny. He could guard 5s. This guy is the strongest person I've ever met. We would get into wrestling matches and it wouldn't end well with me, right? But I would end up tapping out all the time, right? But he was a special strength, right? And I don't know, it was one of those perfect storm things where Steve would get on his point guards the hardest, right? So him and Darrington, he would always be on him, but he would be on Darius like no one other, right? He would really get on Darius Gary, and Darius would tell you himself, he would get on him a lot. He expected a lot from him, and he performed. And if Darius Gary didn't get hurt, I think Darius Gary would still be playing basketball right now.
Was there just a connection between the fact that Darius is from Indiana? Was that like an Alfred, Indiana type thing? Is that why maybe he was tougher on him?
Definitely. Oh yeah. Yeah. They had an Indiana connection. Yeah. He could get on him a little bit more. He knew a lot about it, or he'd call his parents, it is a family connection for sure.
All right.
So yeah. So he played with Eric Gordon. I remember we played against him. I don't remember Darius. I think he was a year under, but yeah, Eric Gordon, he just signed with the Suns, I believe. I remember he had he dunked so. These guys aren't really tall, but I was just amazed by some of these Indiana guys. Indiana guys can really play.
Makes me want to go watch Hoosiers. I want to end on this note because I asked, and I'll explain the connection with Dontrell more in the football here, and I explained this on one of our previous podcasts. And again, this just go back to another Mike Mata's memory and my guys that I went to St. Pius with here, because we lived and died for UNM football like 20 years ago. Now we're old men. But I have 2 fond memories of Lobos successes growing up, and I happen to have these 2 guys on within 3 podcasts. So we recently talked to former Lobo running back at UNM football Ring of Honor, Dontrell Moore, and I told him the same thing. My first great memory in Lobo sports, and before I was a writer and whatnot, Rocky Long and the Lobo football team beat Urban Meyer in Utah and Salt Lake City in 2003, 47-35. Yeah, they fell short of the Mountain West Conference championship that year, but it was still awesome to see them go and beat them. Now, number 2, and I was at the paper then, and it obviously doesn't matter because it's 13 years ago, but for me, it was Saturday, February 27th, 2010. You guys are in Provo, Utah. You escape with an 83-81 win over BYU. You guys win the conference regular season outright pretty much that day. But the game-defining play is Darrington Hobson blocking Noah Hartsock in the final seconds. Do you remember that play vividly? And if so, what was going on in your mind?
So yeah, I never forget that play. So yeah, they have Jimmer Fredette, right? Jimmer Fredette's sick or something happens. But he had an incredible year. That's when he was upcoming before the internet was crazy. Yeah, so we never used to win. We never used to win at Provo. I mean, we used to get blown out at Provo. I mean, I mean, Richie McKay, I remember going to Provo and then leaving there like, how do people win here? Like they're just running. They're just running and shooting, just white people. They're just running and shooting all over the place, just all from all positions. They're just, and then you remember they had Trent Place there, they had Lee Kumar, they had just were stacked with his talent. So um him doing that really yeah, I'll never thank him enough. I tell him all the time, thank you. He really, because he had a wide open layup and Darrington came out of nowhere and left his man and decided to save us the championship, right? Because if we would have lost that game, it would have been like weird split or whatever. Or no, they would have won it outright probably. But that was just a major win for me personally, knowing how hard it is to win the Mountain West Conference. You know, knowing how hard it takes to be the top of this league. You know, especially with San Diego State and these big cities. It meant everything.
He will join the Enchantment as they take on Austin's Own. Ed, I'm sorry about that. I forgot to write own in that question. Austin's Own in the first round of the TBT in Lubbock, Texas, which will begin on July 19th. That game tips at 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time on the ESPN family of networks. His name is Roman Martinez. Ro, I cannot thank you enough. We appreciate you joining the Pit Press podcast.
Ryan, thanks for having me. Ed, thanks for having me. You guys
Bro,
are
just
awesome.
one more comment. One more comment before you go. You know, the 2009-2010 team did win 30. Now, they say I'm a fan since 70, and I was. I am. The 77-78 team with Michael Cooper that was ranked fourth in the nation. I'd have loved to see your two teams go at it. Now, I don't know who's going to win. I'd love to see Norm Ellenberger and Steve Alford on that sideline. You know, rest in peace, Norm. But I'm telling you, that team there, 77-78, the Pit was a madhouse. And all due respect to your team. All due respect. That's how long I've been a fan. That would have been a heck of a matchup. But thanks for coming on today, man. I had to just say that because I'm an old guy. You know, old guys are going to remember old stuff that sometimes doesn't matter. But that team there was a pretty good team.
Well, you're a New Mexico guy, and that's why we played so hard, right? We had teams to compete against like that. Like you guys have seen this, so it was the expectation every day, right? And I think that's what also made us great, right? Because we knew we're like the professional team in town. People go, they expect you to win, and we took that seriously. And it didn't start off like that when I started with Rich McKay, right? Rich McKay had a tough year, but yeah, we definitely knew the history, especially Michael Cooper. What an athlete! Oh my gosh!
Oh man, he was only here 2 years, but gosh, he was something else. He really was.
Yeah, he had a dominant 2 years, but yeah, Norm that would have been a great game no matter what.
Oh yeah. Oh man. Yeah.
Competitive. It would have been competitive.
Best of 7. We got to go 7 on that. Best of 7.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. No, thank you guys for having me, and I really appreciate it. It's great to be back in New Mexico. I'm playing for my family and the state and the city of Albuquerque. So I'm here. I got here a week early. I've been running. I played in Mexico in October. We just got done in October, and it was tough to get back in shape. And it's just been inspirational for me, motivating for me to be back in the city. And yeah, I just appreciate and grateful for you guys, the fans out there, and everyone listening. That it doesn't matter to these kids in college right now, right? Whether you show up or not, they win or lose, it does matter. So thank you.
We can't thank you enough. Thanks, Ro.